This is the ERP Advisor.
Today's episode, avoiding the biggest ERP selection mistakes.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, Avoiding the Biggest ERP Selection Mistakes. And we actually have the pleasure of Carly as a surprise guest today. She is one of our speakers. Carly is a consulting manager at ERP Advisors Group, helping our clients through the entire life cycle of their ERP project, from needs assessment to go live and beyond. In her time at EAG, Carly has been involved in well over 150 projects, and that number keeps going up, even probably since I wrote this, contributing to the successful ERP selection of over 60 organizations and growing. Her expertise extends across many industries and products. Then we have Quentin joining us once again. He's going to become more of a regular on this podcast. Quentin has been in the information technology business for over 20 years. He has led teams as a director of IT, brought innovative products to market as a product manager, and led large teams as a director of technical support. Today, he provides leadership and guidance to ERP Advisors Group's consulting team through a wide variety of technical knowledge, experience, and skills. Quentin serves as EAG's principal consulting. In this role, he provides senior technical guidance to our entire delivery team and supports the consulting division with executive oversight. His expertise is essential in serving as a project lead on our most technical projects, delivering independent and objective guidance to ensure clients select the right enterprise solution to meet their needs. On today's call, we have the pleasure of diving into the most common software selection mistakes and how businesses can mitigate the risks associated with a digital transformation in order to select the right solution. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
And Carly, thank you for making the long journey out here. Q, you were doing that too, but now both of you you're going to be back here in Denver and get to hang out with us a lot more.
Absolutely.
They're going to see your face all the time. And Carly, maybe we'll see the same, but I think you're happy out there. We've been doing a lot of implementation content, but I think this time we wanted to kind of change over and do some more selection, because I think so many customers are still struggling to get the right solution and actually manage that phase. So just to start this off, what are some of the common mistakes made during ERP selection that cause people to turn to us or cause them to end up in the wrong solution?
Well, I would say I'll start this one off, and I would say that the most common selection mistake is that they start to go to the market without knowing what they want. They don't really take a look at their needs. They know they need something, whether that's AI, whether that's a new ERP or a procurement platform. They'll just go out there and start looking at software solutions. But the problem with that is if you don't really understand your needs, you're going to make a mistake. You're not going to find the right solution because you don't really know what you're looking for. So that's one of the most common. Carly,
Yeah, I mean, I would say that probably the same thing in a different viewpoint is just letting the vendors drive your selection process versus you driving the selection process. Mm-hmm. You need to know what you want and need, and then go to the market to see what's available to meet those needs, because those are going to be the differentiators that you need to tell between vendor A and B.
Very much so. You know, another thing I really think of is that a lot of people think that a selection is just about selecting software. They go, oh, this software platform will really do everything I need. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes they had their requirements together.
Right.
But what they're missing is who is going to implement it. And that's really another common mistake, is that they think the software is all that matters in it. And it's really about the implementation partner. Who's going to partner with you? Sometimes that's the software vendor, other times it's a separate organization. But they absolutely have to have those resources included in the selection to make sure that they can actually deliver what the software is offered.
Right.
What do you think about that one, Colin?
Yeah, the partner, most software, after you define what you're looking for and have kind of narrowed down to say the top 2 or 3, can probably meet your needs. It really comes down to what do you prefer, and then what partners are the most, that have like the most relationship that you like. Do they have that partnership that you're looking for from a partner? I know that I was trying to avoid
cultural fit.
The cultural fit. You know, do they understand you? Do they get you? Do you want to be working with them for the next, 6 to 12 months and beyond? Because you will be working with them for that long. And so making sure that there's that personality fit is just as important, because you want to like them, you want to look to them for guidance, for advisory, for best practices, and make sure that they're really bringing their side of the table to it.
If you liken it to dating, you might have a very attractive, person that you're looking at, but can you live with them? What's the relationship? Can you talk with them? Do they understand your feelings? Things of that sort. So, it's a little bit like that. Don't just pick it based on the packaging. Make sure that there's a good quality relationship there. So another thing that I think is a common mistake really in the selection process is not bringing the right people. Yeah. Sometimes you try to bring everyone, and often that can muddy the water. It can just put so many opinions out there that you can't quite see, was it right? Was it not right? Oh, I've worked with that before and I hate it. Oh, that was wonderful. We should always use this. When you get too many people or the wrong people involved with it early on, it can really be a detriment versus a proactive, finding the right solution step. So I know you've run into that on several selections that we've been involved with. So I don't know, you may have other things you want to add to that though.
You don't want to have too many, but also using those people to garner goodwill. So it's kind of like asking a kid, what time do they want to go to bed? Well, they're going to say never, or some, I guess, say they do. But the idea, instead of asking them an open-ended question, you bring to the larger team, especially when change management is necessary, an option A or B. So you're saying, okay, we've refined the short list. Here are what we're looking for. Here's what we're looking at. Who do you prefer, option A or B? And then allowing them to make that decision so that they're involved in the selection process while also helping just that first step of, wow, I really am going to change and I'm excited for the change and I can see myself in the software.
Very much the case.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with expectation management, something we talk about quite a bit. And not involving the right people, not involving them at the right gradient can be detrimental to your expectation management. They don't have support for it. They don't see the business case. They don't really understand why you're changing. And that can lead the project down a rocky path if you have people that aren't on board, because at the end of the day, your people are your most valuable resource.
Yeah, the last point on that particular question that I'll bring up is executive sponsorship. Don't go into a software selection unless your executives, those who are going to say, yes, we should do this, are on board. Yeah. Because you'll get into it, you'll go through all of this effort, look at all the software, maybe you find the perfect solution and the perfect partner. But if those executives weren't on board with it and weren't involved with it, they may just say no. Yeah. And it's a moot point. It was a lack of investment, and you really shouldn't have gone through the process in the first place. So that's another kind of common mistake going into a selection, is that the people doing the job are like, we need something for this, and they go after it. And that's great. But make sure the executives are in alignment, because software implementation, software products cost a lot of money. And if it's not the right time for the business, you may lose out in the end.
Yeah. Carly, do you have anything to add? Okay,
no,
great.
That's
I think that also leads us into, we're going to dive deep into some of these specific examples of common mistakes that people make, but really we talk so much about laying that foundation, knowing your needs, knowing where you need to start. And Carly, I'm going to direct this at you. Like, where should businesses begin their search for new ERP in order to really set themselves up for success?
With EAG.
That's the right answer.
Yeah, that's shameless plug, as I would always expect.
Yeah, but honestly, though, it comes back to, I think, that first kind of topic is defining what your needs and wants are, defining your requirements, and figuring those pieces out. Do we need manufacturing? Do we need distribution? What kind of distribution? What kind of manufacturing it's getting a little bit more granular and granular, because there's so many different apps that have that big picture statement that they can do, but it's going further into it. Is it process manufacturing? Is it agriculture versus aquaculture? Those things matter, because there are small nuances that will make some software stand out above the others. And so I think defining your requirements, defining what you need, and then looking for software that matches those requirements. That's kind of that first step that I would say when looking for software.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's kind of understanding yourself first, looking at your strategy. Like, strategy is very different than process, but if you as an organization are going to go into M&A, or if you're about to divest of a certain portion of the business, or if your plans are to double over the next year, that heavily impacts what type of software and the size of package and the number of users and the cost and all sorts of things. So strategy. People. Are your people going to go through it?
Yeah.
Are they willing to go through it? Is it going to cost so much to have them change over that they're unwilling to remain at the business? These are big factors that are often excluded from, should we go into a software selection? They dive in. So, really, as you're gearing up to do it, start with those factors. Get to know yourself better. Your strategy, your people, your processes, as Carly was talking about, as well as your current technology. That's another kind of area where a lot of organizations go, oh, I can't do this as an individual subject matter expert. They don't realize there are 15 other tools in the company that were already purchased to be able to do that. So really observing what you have and finding out, can we do this with what we've got today? This is really pertinent within AI because almost every software vendor out there is adding AI to their solutions. And you may not be aware of that. Maybe the version you're on, maybe that it was implemented 10 years ago and you don't realize these functions are available. You haven't optimized. So there are many other paths, but that's why we start with getting to know yourself, getting to know what you really have, what you're trying to do, where you're going. And that is a perfect place to start on any selection before you actually get into the software side of things.
Wouldn't it be great if there was somebody out there who was truly independent, truly objective, and who really cared about what you needed? That's ERP Advisors Group. That is exactly what we do. We have a proven methodology that will take you through the needs analysis, selection, implementation, and even optimization, where you'll go from being confused and upset and scared and unsure all the way through to having successful software that does exactly what you need it to do. We'd like to offer you a free consultation. Click on the button down below and let's spend a few minutes, even 10, 15 minutes, and talk about your project. And I bet you'll be surprised. There'll be some things we can do for you, even over that call, that would help you, much less talk about how we could work with you over the duration of your project. And just know you don't have to do this project alone. You don't have to face these confusions on your own. It's exactly what ERP Advisors Group is here for, and we look forward to helping you through your process.
And your strategy can heavily impact your processes. So maybe the processes you have now are not conducive for growth in the future. And those are going to have to evolve, and identifying some of those things, not just documenting how things are done now, but also documenting how you would like things to be done in the future.
Right. Like if you're a cash basis organization looking to grow and go through some type of, say, private equity event, that private equity group is undoubtedly going to have you go to an accrual basis. That is a huge change as an organization. So you need to know those factors so that when you are going in and looking at software, you're looking at it from the right lens. Also, that's a really good time to change from cash to accrual, is when you're in a new software. Yes, there's some factors that you have to do and work with your CPAs and such to get there, but these are good things to know about yourself in order to ultimately get to where you want to go, or at least be on the path from that 3, 5, 10-year projection.
Yeah, and so there's a lot that could be said for preparation before you get into selection. But say you've done all that. You've actually gone through, you've done the due diligence. You have good people, they understand their business, what they're doing, and they put these requirements together. That's not rocket science. People can do that on their own, and that's great, although we'd love to be involved because we've done it very effectively and professionally for a long time. But once you're past that point, what do you do next? And I think a lot of our watchers are interested in, like, okay, great, we got our requirements together, we've done that, we've been through this before, great. What's the real next step? I would say don't jump into calling software vendors immediately. Do online research. Look online. Talk to your peer groups. Talk to other similar organizations, maybe some of your suppliers or vendors, maybe some of your customers, and see what they were doing. Tie in some of maybe the other initiatives that you're looking at within the organization if they're already on a hunt for HR platform or an AI platform or whatever it is. And that's before you reach out to those software vendors. Then, great. Once you kind of have a familiarity with the industry, you understand what others are doing, what's out there. You've seen that online research, run it through an AI and gotten back, oh, here are the top ones for our type of business. Then you can do a little bit further. Again, before you get into demonstrations or anything like that, you might want to give them a quick call. See if they have the resources available. Sometimes you actually want to start with maybe those implementation partners versus the software vendors, because software vendors are trying to sell software.
Yeah.
Implementation vendors are trying to help you put that software in place for your business and make sure it's valuable and successful for you. So you can kind of look around and say, hey, you implement Microsoft Business Central, or you implement Acumatica or NetSuite or whatever it is. What have you seen successful? Are you familiar with this? Do you have the right resources? Have a quick conversation before you even do any demonstrations.
Yeah.
That will inform you whether you actually want to see a demonstration of that platform.
Yeah.
A lot of times the partners are going to be more honest about what the software can do or not do, because they just take on a different viewpoint, right? They're here to and they're here to help versus get you live versus software just. And I don't want to like overplay that. They're there to sell, so they're gonna try to find a way to sell. There's great people out there that don't do that. So I don't want to generalize that by any means, but they'll help you, guide you through. Okay, hey, like, yes, we can do 90%, but this piece that is pretty critical, you actually want to look at a bolt-on, and we actually have a partner that we work with. So you'll start to find some of those nuances from that, and then you'll also find the right partner to do the work based on what you're looking for, because maybe the partner that you call doesn't have that experience in what you need, but they have a friend at their partner company that's like, I can do that for you. And we know that industry, that requirements.
Yeah. The other thing I will say is that narrows your field down. There are hundreds of different platforms out there that all say they can do everything that you need. And I also want to be fair to software vendors. Software vendors do understand businesses, and they're not just trying to sell you software. And they do have good professional services as well at times. They have great solution architects, solution consultants that will come in, understand that, and make sure that they show the software in a light that's good for you. But you've already invested pretty heavily if you get to that point.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying do the research upfront, start narrowing the field down to a manageable number of platforms that really meet your needs before you get into the heavy investment of demonstrations, use cases, NDAs, all sorts of hoops to jump through to say, this is the right software, this is the right partner. So
Yeah, that way you're not demoing with 12 people, because that will just confuse you. So you want to have those initial conversations to cull the group down to 5 at max.
Yeah. That was a lot of information. So I'm going to just take a step back for a second for our listeners who are joining us. I know from a marketing perspective, I see a lot of valuable stuff on Reddit. And so people can go there and give themselves like an option to not only consult with peers, but also kind of anonymously ask those questions that maybe you don't necessarily want to be asking. But going to the vendor conversation, what we've also seen is just the process itself. When you're calling the vendors, you're likely going to get a new BDR who's just trying to get business in the door. And so it's not malicious by any means that they're not giving you the answer, but they're there to be a yes man and get you to the next person. So during your initial research, you are going to hear yes most of the time. And it's not going to be easy to narrow that down. We do have resources on our website for questions to ask an ERP vendor. When you're navigating those initial processes, where you can say, like, do you have experience with businesses in this industry with this many people, and they can give you an answer. If that person can't, then it's easy to say, well, can I speak to your manager because I have some more technical questions, or can I, if you really don't think that you do, maybe that eliminates them from the conversation. There's definitely a gradient to interacting with these vendors that isn't intentional. It's just kind of the nature of how they're set up.
Absolutely.
They're large, and there's going to be a lot of, you see Oracle as an example, the SAPs of the world, they're huge. And so you're not going to get to speak to the CFO, CEO right away and be like, hey, what kind of products can you offer me? And in the mix of that confusion, you guys have all mentioned this, demoing, casting that net a little too wide. Let's say you did get it, you got it down to the number of people that you need to be demoing. And sales pitches themselves can be a little confusing already. And then you all of a sudden add that you're doing multiple and you're talking to multiple people who are trying to sell you the product. What are some successful actions that businesses can take during the demo process in order to maybe mitigate some of those issues and actually get to the root of, is this product right for me?
I would say demo scripts so that you are giving yourself a true apples to apples comparison, because they all have the shiny things they want to show you, and they're amazing things, but maybe it's not as tactical as you need to be able to make a decision. So getting a down to the nuts and bolts of what you need to see out of the software, and and have each one show it. You can give them the same script, give them the same instructions, and they will come back with very different results. And that's because they are very different people and software. And so you have to, that's how you make the decision of going, okay, well, they can meet my requirements, but I like the way this one does it better, or I feel like my end users are going to respond better to this one because of the UI or the familiarity with just the software in general. That's how you sort of boil it down to the pieces. The other hard part that I think is the hardest for people, especially if they're not doing this all the time, is pulling apart the person demoing versus the actual software's capability. And that, again, is where we can help differentiate between, did this person do a bad job? Did they just have like an off day? Or does the software really not quite meet the needs?
Yeah, I'd add a little bit to that, and really that, you said demo script earlier. And what is a demo script? It's basically a layout of the things that are important to you, the requirements or functionality, maybe some use cases to help steer the demonstration. And I'd also say you don't want to go full bore on the demonstration up front. You want to do a very light demonstration to get a feel for it, because to really look at the broad functionality of a system, these systems take months to implement most of the time, and it's really hard to consume all of that in a couple of hours, or even 8 hours or 16 hours. So you really have to, you have to take it off in bite-sized chunks. Go, okay, here are the most important things to me. Here are my use cases. Here are the metrics I'm going to measure them against to say this was good enough, this was not as good, this was great, this met everything I could hope for. Also, be ready for them to show you the things that they're really good at, and avoid the things that they're not so good at. And so you kind of have to make sure that you have at least a list of things that are critical for you, so that you see those in that first round, so that okay, they are actually a complete miss in our pro services area. But they're great in our procurement area. Which is the most important to you? Is pro serve 2% of your business? And so it's like, okay, that's fine. But if it's 50% of your business, you absolutely have to make sure they're really viable in that area. So don't let the sales or the demonstration person steer you towards only the functionality they want to show. Make sure you steer them.
Yeah, and I think both of you can touch on this a little bit more too in depth, but Q, when you and I were talking about this topic, it's so important to just have a standard process across each and every demo. If I'm sitting there comparing pasta to salad, it's not going to be like, they're two totally different things. I'm getting something totally different out of it. You need something in place, a standard methodology for not only asking the vendor to show you certain things, but also for rating that. Can you guys talk a little bit more about that?
Well, that comes back down to what I said, the demo script. Maybe that's a use case or a user story, or just your requirements and that you're asking them to run through. Those kind of things are how you get that standard process there. Then from a scoring perspective, I've seen this done a lot of different ways. We, of course, have our own methodology, but there's also just creating it from maybe your top 5 requirements need to be met, and you score those on a 1 to 5 or 10 basis, and you get that kind of feedback. And there's a value in going semi-deep. I wouldn't go granular and be like, well, everything had to be done and showed, and because that you don't need 50 markers. You just need a good solid dozen.
And you need to take it at a gradient approach. There's always enough time later. So if it shows good the first round, you need to walk away with confidence that we want to see more. That's really what you're doing in that first round. I want to see more. I'm confident that this has enough to look at it more deeply. In the next round, then you go deeper. And then there's actually another round. You can go into deep dives. You really want to, before you actually buy software or partner with an implementation partner, you want to have complete confidence. And so it's a very sequential gradient approach to being able to do that. So I know we got into a lot, but that's a little bit how you can avoid those sales pitches. Those we were sold and it doesn't really do what we need. So you go through it step by step. You have a demo script, you have a metric, you do a little bit at a time, and then you get to the end and you're like, wow, I know exactly what I'm getting into.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and Q, we'll go into this actually next month because we're going to be talking about staffing your ERP selection and at each phase of the project, really who you're bringing in. But also don't bring everybody to that first meeting and expect it to do exactly what you need it to do, right?
That is absolutely true. So like make that smaller bite-sized piece, just the core stakeholders. Like if this is a procurement thing, bring your head of procurement, supply chain, etc. So don't bring the entire team because you'll get so many different viewpoints, so many different directions. You won't be able to narrow the field very easily.
Yeah. Yeah, if we're demoing a new ERP, you don't necessarily need to bring me in on marketing to be like, how do you feel about entering your time?
But at some stage, I will absolutely do that,
At one
especially
stage,
for the areas that are applicable to your functions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was just an example.
Sure.
And I always like to throw in there too, like during the selection, like don't ignore your gut feeling. And that's something I know we push with our clients is if you feel bad or like uneasy about the solution or the partner, like voice those concerns and being able to communicate that with your team. And I think that's a common mistake is people not being willing to communicate that or bring those things forward during the demos. Would you say you've seen that as well, Carly? I know you're looking at me.
A little bit. Actually, we sometimes call ourselves like, corporate therapists, right? I feel like we definitely open the door for people to be able to express if they have concerns, but sometimes maybe just inherently they don't feel like they can. So
or if they're not there.
Or they're not there.
We're not there, I mean.
Oh,
like if
we're not there. That's where
creating that
sometimes
culture.
anonymous scorecards can sort of help because then they can express their concerns without feeling like they might get admonished for what they have to say.
Right.
Yeah, it depends on the culture of the organization, how they want to do that. Some it's very important. Other ones, like they're completely open and they are all very vocal about it. So you have to know yourself again. This comes back to that kind of needs analysis, like who should be involved? Are people very into this? I've seen it where sometimes like the team involved with it, like it's so critical to the business, they're like we don't want them distracted. And we just have to have a couple of key individuals involved, and they will make the decision.
Right.
But again, with executive backing, they can make the decision.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting there. That gets into some risks, and I know we probably want to talk about risks too.
Yeah, and that'll be, I was just trying to signal to Nicole just to see the time since we don't have a clock up. It's perfect. We're actually on track. I've been trying to keep these a little shorter just because it's easier for people to absorb the information that way. And again, if you have questions, we're always welcome for that as we go into this last kind of seeded question that we had prepared. But Q, every project comes with risks. I'll have you kick this off and then punch it over to Carly. What are some of those common risks that we see? Not necessarily the mistakes, but some of the issues that can arise, and how can customers or like businesses mitigate that during the selection?
I think probably the biggest risk on software selection is that you don't validate all your requirements. So you make assumptions that the software can do something. So you go, oh, they have a procurement module. They can do purchase orders. They must have MRP.
Yeah.
You didn't validate that they had MRP. You didn't see it. Oh, it must have seasonality. Oh, no, it can't factor in seasonality.
Yeah.
So it's really that risk of thinking you saw something without validating that you saw it and confirming that it can meet those requirements. That's one of the biggest risks in the software selection is it's very hard to go deep enough to see and make sure. So you have to make some assumptions. And ERP platforms, and specifically like procurement in my example, they are built to handle most of the functions out of the box. So it doesn't have to be just weeks and weeks of validation. But the things that are critical for your business, absolutely, that's one of the biggest risks. Validate those critical pieces.
Yeah, and I mean, we work with some very, very unique companies sometimes where it isn't that surface level procurement. It's something else completely where they have to dig in, and we're pretty good about adjusting that validation in order to make sure those core pieces are in place and that they're
Right.
seeing what they need to see.
And most businesses do think they're unique, and to a degree, they are. They do have things that make them unique.
Yeah.
That's why not every manufacturer that manufactures a similar thing is the same. But there's about 95% most of the time that isn't unique.
Yeah.
And most of those functionality pieces are already there. But those uniquenesses are very important, and sometimes what differentiate your business from another. And in a selection, that might be the make-break point for, is that the right product for you or not?
Yeah. And Carly, what about you? What are some of those risks that you're seeing, and how can businesses go about mitigating them?
You know, I mean, that is a big risk, is just really making sure that you are seen
Mhm.
and not being told.
Seeing.
Trust but verify, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there is, in a demo, even if it is 8 or 16 hours long, it is never long enough to see everything. And you
Right.
will always have some follow-ups. And so allowing yourself to have those follow-ups and take the time that you need and not rush through the diligence, while also not overly elongating the diligence, will make the process kind of smoother, calmer at the end, and don't let the vendors pressure you into some arbitrary month-end, quarter-end signing date if you really have these questions open-ended.
Yeah, I'd add to that, kind of that pressure phase during it, that is a risk.
Yeah.
And what I'd say about that is that's a little bit about terms, conditions, negotiations at the end of the process.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're all the way to the end, but hey, there's a deadline, it's end of month, it's end of quarter, it's end of
Yeah.
fiscal year, whatever it is, that can put pressure on you to sign agreements. Our recommendation is do not sign an agreement with software vendor, implementation partner, or anything until you are completely confident. And that is terms, conditions, costing, discounts,
Yeah.
there are other terms, the legal terms.
Yeah.
Have it reviewed, because that's important. You're getting into a long-term agreement for a lot of money, and it needs to be right. So that's another risk that is very important, is like, make sure that if you don't know what you should be getting into, ask.
Yeah.
You can find out. I will also say it has to be fair on all other sides. A lot of times people think the risk is they're going to get taken for too much money or something like that. And that's true, but these businesses don't stay in business if they're doing bad business
Yeah.
practices like
Yeah.
that. So you have to be fair in those negotiations as well. I would say there's one other critical risk that is often overlooked, and that's implementation planning.
Yeah. In selection, people might be like, "What are you talking about?" No, it's crucial.
Yeah, it really is crucial. And so I think that's one of the biggest risks in a selection actually, is they go, great, we found the software, we found the partner, they're going to make this happen. You, as the buyer, have a very, very big part in making it happen and making it work.
Yep.
And that implementation planning comes before you buy it, not after. So you need to make sure you have the right resources, that you're prepared for it, that if you had other initiatives that are going to get away, or maybe there's a new acquisition that's coming on board.
Yeah.
It's going to set you out months before you're ready to do it.
Yeah.
You need to do that planning up front, not just go, we found the perfect solution, we found the perfect partner, let's go. And then you sign, and then you've paid, for all intents and purposes, and we're going to start next year, right?
Yeah.
It's January, and you're going to wait a year to start? Well, you just signed up for a year of service that you're not going to be able to use. So,
Or if what kind of the main person is going to be, that's going to be in the implementation, is just already has a 60-hour job, right? You have to backfill them somehow, or offload some of their work, or some kind of something to help shift their load to the implementation, because that's hard. It's in a job in itself. So recognizing some of that planning steps is really, really helpful.
Are you implying I can't just press a button and my system will be in place?
yes, there is no easy button in implementing
Darn.
software. I mean, a lot of organizations are saying AI will just take care of it for you and they can implement in
Yeah,
2
it's not
weeks.
gonna
And
happen.
it's all great. The problem with that is it's not about software. Actually, an implementation, as much as it seems like it's about software, that's actually the job of the implementation partner. And they can do that as fast or as slow as you as an organization and your people can
Yeah.
manage it. It's some technical work, but it's 90% people work.
Yeah.
And if they're not ready for it, they don't know their job, they don't know the new system, they don't know how to operate, they're in disagreement, it's not going to go very well. So get that in order first.
Yeah, doing it at the right time. And if you stayed on that this long and like joined us for the entire call, I know in the middle of a workday that can be difficult. But there was another little nugget of information is that if you are being promised your implementation is going to be 2 weeks and it's going to be over and ready to go, like that's just not happening. And that's coming from people who are, again, the system might be in place, the architecture might be in place, the house might be built, but it's probably not safe to be living in that house. Or your stuff's not in the house in order for you to actually operate. So a side note that kind of came out of this conversation and something that I hope you guys can walk away with. But either of you like to add anything else before I wrap us up?
I would just say that if you do have any confusions, you do get lost, you get kind of like, oh my gosh, there's all of these options and I don't know what to do, reach out to us. We're happy to help. Every single person on the team is here to help you guys, and or just check out our website. We have a lot of really amazing work that Rebecca and her team has put together for you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's pretty much what I was going to say. You know, we're happy to have a call with anyone. Whether we engage with you, whether you need our services or not, we can answer questions. So reach out to us. We're happy to answer.
Yeah, truly, I love that about our organization, that I can feel good about. Like, here's all this free stuff that I can offer you, even if we are not, now is not the right time for you to be engaging with somebody like us.
Yeah.
And thank you again so much for you both joining me on today's call, and thank you to all of our listeners for hopping on in the middle of a busy day. And please let us know if you have any questions, whether that is in the Zoom right before we turn this off, or if you email me afterwards. I'm always available, rebecca.mccabe@erpadvisorsgroup.com, Quentin at erpadvisorsgroup.com, or Carly at erpadvisorsgroup.com. We are always here to answer anything. And be sure to join us for our next webinar, which is scheduled for Thursday, August 13th. Who should you involve in your ERP selection? Where Quentin is going to join me again. And we're going to go through each phase of the selection and give you guys tips for who to involve at the right gradient. Please go to our website, erpadvisorsgroup.com, for more details and to register. EAG is one of the country's top independent enterprise software advisory firms. EAG advises mid to large-sized businesses on selecting and implementing business applications from enterprise resource planning, customer relationship management, human capital management, and business intelligence and other enterprise applications, which equate to millions of dollars in software deals each year across many industries. This has been the ERP Advisor. Thank you again for joining us.